Hello, Steve White, Steve Arts 89. Well, we've got another discovery drama. Now, I saw an article for this yesterday, and I didn't actually think much of it. I thought it was pretty simple. And I didn't think it was going to blow up into a thing, but apparently it's a thing, and I'm like, now I have an opinion on the thing. Not so much on the original situation in the story, but I have an opinion on the thing, so I thought, if I don't say something, it's just going to bug me. Um, Okay, Walter Mosley is a African American writer, award-winning writer, who was brought onto the Discovery season three writers' room, and at some point he was telling the story of a cop who was referring to black people as the N-word, um, and he used the N-word because he's black and apparently he doesn't care about using it. Um, and somebody got offended and they went to HR, and HR contacted him and said, you can use it in the script, but you can't say it. So we're just letting you know, like, we don't use that word in our office, basically, in our work environment. Now, surely that's something that would have been in a contract somewhere, or maybe it's just an unspoken thing now, and people just assume people know you don't use the F word or the F word pertaining to gays, or the C word, or probably even the B word. There's a whole bunch of words you don't use at work. It's really that simple. When you're at work, you don't swear, you don't use offensive terms, and you especially don't direct them at other people, but you don't even use them in a context like that. Now, context is important, but I know this, and as far as I know, everyone else knows this. So why this writer seems to think that he can just break those rules? I guess artists, I'm an artist too, we think we can do whatever we want, break all the rules, and the rules don't apply to us. Well, sorry, someone fills your paycheck, they get to say what you can and can't do in the office that they're paying you to be in. So I didn't have a lot of sympathy for him. I thought, okay, he wasn't fired. He was told you can't use that word. We know you're black, but you can't use that word in any context because it's offensive to people and we just don't use it. And then rather than stay there, he decided to leave because, and this sounded like paranoia. He was saying that he knew if he stayed, they'd be monitoring every word and reporting back to, it sounded a bit paranoid. Basically, someone was offended. They said he's using this term. I don't like it. Now, this guy, he's an older black guy. Now, sometimes when black people get older, their skin fades, the melanin fades, and they don't look as dark. And maybe he wasn't very dark skinned in the first place, but he looks in photos kind of like a white guy. Kind of, it's just he doesn't look black. So I don't know if someone could have sat in a room with him and thought he was white, and thought it was a white person speaking like this. I'm pretty sure they must have known he was black, and they just didn't like the term used at all. Now, being a very, very white person, I know I can never use this word in any context. I admit sometimes I do use it in some contexts. If I'm repeating someone else saying it in some context, like a song or something, I do that. Now I know I'm not supposed to do that, but we all do that. White, just people of color, white people all use the N word when they're singing to songs when you're not around, because it's just part of the lyric. And to condition yourself to not do that, it just pulls you out of the song. It's one of those little things. I think that's the only time we do it. It's the only time I do it. Um, and I don't know if I can get in trouble for saying that, but I mean we all do it. But there is a context. But I wouldn't do that at work. If I was at work and a song comes on the radio with the N word, I'm not going to be singing it. But at home, I am. Um, so that's the difference here. This is at work. He did this at work. And work gets to dictate the environment they create for their employees. And you don't get to dictate that as an employee. You either stick by the rules or leave. Or you can suggest it be changed, and they can do that. But if they don't, and they say, no, these are our values, these are what we believe, you have to leave. And I can't believe I'm sticking up for the man, the boss, the work. But I just think this guy's being unreasonable, and he's creating a drama. And yes, artistic people create dramas and make it all about them and all this sort of stuff. So that's one side of it. I think it's fairly simple. He used the word in context, but it still is an offensive term. He was told, please don't use it. And he said, I don't want to work in an environment where I can't use the N word in context because I'm black, and I should be able to use it in context. So he left. No one fired him. No one said he had to leave. They just said, this is our rule in case you don't know. which I think is very considerate. They could have fired him. They could have just fired him like that. You used the word, you fired. But they explained it to him, and he just said, fine, and then slinked out. Apparently, he didn't tell them why he was leaving or he was leaving. He just sort of left. Apparently, so that's that. And I heard that, and I thought, okay. So, first impression, I thought he was white. I was like, ooh, no, you can't do that. And then I'm like, I better check. He could be just really light and kind of old. And then I looked, I'm like, okay, he's African American. Okay. But everyone is jumping on this now like it's a SJ Warrior thing, and it's a freedom of speech thing and a freedom of expression thing, and that this is part of the apocalypse coming, that, you know, like we're all going to lose our rights and everything's going to be destroyed and we're all going to... I think it's a huge overreaction. It must be slow news day. People just want something to talk about, because I really don't think it's an issue. I mean, I am white. I don't use the word. I know that I can stop myself from using that in certain environments, in certain situations, in certain contexts. Surely this intelligent, articulate, award-winning writer can do the same damn thing. He knows he's not supposed to use the word, even though he's black. Now, I know this is a big issue with black people, because some black people use it all the time, think they're entitled to it, don't care. Fine. Some black people say, no, you shouldn't use it in any context, no one's entitled to it, and you should never use it. Like Oprah has said many times, and she's had this argument with people like Chris Rock and people on her show who use the N-word in their comedy or the music, and they're saying, you shouldn't use it. I don't use it. I don't use it because of what it means, what it brings up, the history of the word. You can say you can use it in different contexts, or you can use different spellings or different, like there's, I nearly said it, there's the N-word with A at the end, and there's the N-word with ER. And the ER is the offensive word white people use to black people. The A is the one that, one we're ending with A, is the one that black people use when talking to each other, apparently, and that's the distinction. And that there are these distinctions and contexts, and it depends on who's saying it and where they're saying it, how they're saying it. And other people just say, no, don't use it at all. And some work environments say, we do not use that. Just like faggot. I can say faggot because I'm white. And this is my video. Fuck off. I say fuck if I want. Why? Because this is my video on my YouTube channel and nobody cares. No one's watching anyway. It's just me talking to myself. Doesn't matter. If I was at work, I wouldn't be using the faggot word. I wouldn't be calling myself a faggot or anyone else a faggot because it's offensive. I know that. So does Walter. Walter Mosley knows this, so I don't know why he's making a drama. If I used the faggot F word, if I called myself a faggot and offended other faggots in the room, or just people who think it's an offensive term, because it is an ugly term, and when you hear that word, you can, if you've been called a faggot or you've seen someone abusing a hate crime or something, and you hear that word, it brings all that up for you, just like the N-word would for black people, or anyone who has been victimized by that word or been traumatized by that word, which you can be. I do. It's absolutely a thing. This also goes into the whole argument about our society being too soft, and just this idea that people have a right to be abusive and you should be abusive, and that people who can't take abuse, well, they're just weak, and they're sort of they're like stepping on the entitlements of the abusive, offensive people who would use terms and verbally abuse people. So that is always bizarre to me. These people who are fighting for the right to abuse and insult people, like they're losing some sort of freedom if they can't swear and use abusive terms. So yeah, so my example, I use the F word all the time, faggot, because I'm gay, just like black people use the N word all the time because they're black. But there's some environments they can't use it in, like a work environment. Now, if your work says we're okay with that, we know what blah blah blah, then that's fine, but it's up to the work to decide, not the employee. And if you don't like it, leave. He didn't like it, he left. And he did an article not mentioning the show, and someone else mentioned the show and made it more of a drama, because there already is a woke issue history with Discovery, where, and there's also actually a history on the staff. They've fired who was it, Herberts and Berg, two showrunners, because they were swearing and abusive to other people in the writers' room, so they fired them. And apparently Akiva Goldsman, and this is a rumor, allegedly, like anyone's listening to sue me. Nobody cares what I say. Yeah, I can say what I want. Akiva Goldsman apparently uses the F-bomb. He likes to call gay people faggots, and apparently he was referring to Stamets, the character on Discovery who's gay, as a faggot, referring to him as the faggot, or in some terms as a faggot, and doing like, feminine, talking like, the gay character. He was doing that thing, which straight people, you can't do that. We can do that. Gay people can do that about ourselves, but straight people, you can't do that. These are the wonderful rules of political correctness. There's shit you can't do and can't say. Why? Because people shouldn't have to deal with you not knowing you shouldn't do that. So there's a rule that says you can't do it. So you don't have to work it out for yourself. Society's nice enough to tell you can't call gay people faggots, you can't call women the C word. I love it. Can I use the K word? Can I say cunt, like K-U-N-T? I like that one. I do like that one, but I'm being told, because I'm a man, I can't use that one. But I don't direct it at women. I always saw it, before I understood the gender politics, I saw that word as like asshole, like a generic word for just a horrible person, just worse than an asshole was the C word. And then I found out it was derogatory of women. I'm like, oh damn, I can't use that word anymore. And then I saw people using it spelling it with a K and making it mean a different thing. And I'm like, oh, can I do that? So I always usually spell it with a C, unless I'm trying to be offensive. I use the K word. So yeah, but you can't use that. You can't use. There's plenty of words for Asian people. I guess you can't use. I can't think. Oh, the G word, gook. You can't say that. I don't know what I just did, but you can't say that. Like I just said that. You can't say that in a work environment. You can't. There are things you can't say, and the N word is one of them. I can't say the N word, and I'm not going to say it on here because it'd be just my luck that someone saw it and was like, oh my god, white guy said N word, evil, and then it becomes a thing when it's really not a thing. And I have no subscribers and very few views, but I don't need to get them by getting in trouble. So I'm not using it. But like when I was going to go to, I was worried about this. I was going to go to a concert. You can guess, black artist. Childish Gambino. I love some of his songs. I listen to them all the time. I sing them all the time. And I walk around for months using the N-word just randomly because it's in the song and I just love the song and it's catchy. And I didn't do it in front of anyone. I didn't slip, and I'm not going to, I'm not even going to say which song it was, but I thought, shit, if I go see it in what am I going to do when that song's on? I want to sing to it. I know I can't because a girl did that in somebody's concert and he pulled her up on stage, or she was already on stage, and he called her out and said, you can't use that word. And I'm like, you pulled her up on the stage to sing a song. You know that word's in the song. You know she's white. You knew she was going to sing it. You know she's not racist. She's at your concert. It was a total stunt. And I thought, I don't want to be the only white guy in the audience who then does that and then they become like the YouTube video. So I didn't end up going to the concert anyway because he broke his foot. They postponed it. And then by the time they put it back on, I was kind of over it. And I kind of was like, I think he's sort of been around for a while. He's a talented artist and everything. He has had records for years, but that song was kind of like a one-hit wonder where it just blew up over everything else he's ever done, and I think that moment's kind of gone. So I didn't go, but I was worried about that, and as a white person you have to worry about that sort of stuff, because I used the word once when I was a kid in high school. I nearly got kicked out of school. I used it in context, but they didn't acknowledge any context. It's like you use that word, I got a big chewing out and I nearly got kicked out. And the only person in my school who was of any colour, who was Asian, who was Malaysian, knew I wasn't racist and wasn't using that in that term. So no one was offended by it because of the context, and they understood the context, but still as a white person use it in school, and you can't do that. These are just rules. So Mr. Mosley needs to just calm the fuck down because he's causing a big stir about nothing. And the other thing everyone's talking about is David Chappelle. Is it David Chappelle? You know what I'm talking about. He did this great TV special, which I didn't know was called Sticks and Stones and Break My Bones. And he pointed out that he got in trouble for using the word, and they said, oh, it's okay for him to use it because he's black. And he's like, well, I'm not one. So, and I thought that was a kind of stupid play on words because you're not taking on you're not taking on the actions or the characteristics of the insult for that word automatically by using it. So it was kind of funny. I got the joke. It was funny. It was clever. But I don't think it's actually representative of that word and the use of that word, and the examples like this of work environments where you can't use it, and where and when you can or can't use it, or who can or can't use it. So, but I did watch that special, and it was funny. There is a level of political correctness kind of stands over common sense and context, unfortunately, because people can manipulate that too easily and get away with using it. So we kind of have to have the overall umbrella sort of ban on certain things. And then you just deal with the little skirmishes. Like, it's an overall war, and then there's the little skirmishes that you deal with context and intention, and you actually believe someone made a mistake, or if they're actually trying to be offensive or trying to cut someone down and demean someone, whatever. So it's a contentious topic. It's an interesting topic. I think this guy didn't do anything wrong. I don't think HR did anything wrong. I think he chose not to be there. That was his choice. No one asked him to leave. I think he's over-dramatising by implying he had to leave, or that he would have been kicked out. Like, well, if you don't use the word, there won't be a problem. So, and it just, I think it's a storm in a teacup. People are going to jump on it. They are jumping on it. They're making it a freedom of speech thing. And, of course, the sort of questionable people are jumping on it like, oh, they're taking away our rights again. And I'm like, what right do you want to use an offensive term? I mean, why do you need to use that? Why do you need that? Because you want it to go back to the old days where you could use words like that or whatever you want and belittle anyone you want, so you could maintain your position. And that's part of the thing that is behind that. No names. I'm going to leave it there because I've gone on for 17 minutes now, and I didn't plan to make a video that long because I know no one watches long videos. Yeah. Don't use the N-word at work unless you're allowed to. It's fairly simple, even if you like. Feel free to like or subscribe or tell me if I'm wrong. I love comments. I don't get a lot. I love reading other people's comments. I wish I had more. Okay, feel free to like or subscribe. Thanks, bye.